All right, so we have another very troubling arrest and the death of a black man at the hands of law enforcement that certainly looks beyond suspicious. It looks like it very well may be criminal. Now, I always preface this with where I come from on these issues, and I think those of you who've been listening to me for a while know, even without me saying, that I have law enforcement in my family. I have worked as a civilian analyst with the NYPD in the past on terrorism cases, and I understand the job, and I know that 99% of cops want to do the right thing. There's a whole separate discussion we can have here about how many cops are enforcing the petty tyranny of the lockdowns at the behest of governors and mayors, but that's a different conversation from this one. This is a seriousness of imminent life and death when we're talking about use of force and the willingness of police to abuse the power they have. Remember, the contract that we have with law enforcement is that when they show up anywhere and they say, you are under arrest, you will comply and you will not be harmed and you'll be taken and have a fair judicial process and your rights will be respected throughout. If you resist, they will only use the bare minimum force necessary to make you comply and then bring you into that judicial process. But if you don't pose a threat to them, our agreement with law enforcement and under the law, this is our expectation. If you don't pose a threat, they should be no threat to you. It's a very important underlying position that we all should hold here when it comes to dealing with law enforcement. And I also will say that there's a lot of times when there's a close case, or I remember when I was at the Blaze. I forget even what the year it was now. I was at the Blaze TV. That's right. I was there for the founding of the Blaze TV. Now it's a whole other thing with all these other people there, and some very nice people, some not so nice people at the Blaze. And I was there at the founding. Anyway, I remember when the Mike Brown thing happened, and I was saying, look, I'm sorry, but I don't believe the story that we're being told by the media, and I always was respecting the position of Officer Darren Wilson because the facts supported his side of the story. So I'm not somebody that jumps on these cases and says, "Oh my gosh," And there are a lot of conservatives that like to do a bit of virtue signaling on this. Every time there's a headline about unarmed, and it has to be presented in this way: unarmed black man killed by white police officer. That's the story. And every time that story comes up, there are some conservatives who say, "Oh my gosh," without looking at the facts, without looking at the specifics. Because yes, there are times when, with the hundreds of thousands of cops we have across the country, there are times where an officer will, out of rage or malice or whatever, kill somebody in a way that is illegal, clearly violates that individual's right to life and their most basic, most fundamental right. That does happen. But there are also a lot of cases where someone doesn't comply, won't do what they're told, and this is true of a person of any race, of any background, but they force the officers to escalate. And then when the escalation is happening, all of a sudden the cameras come out and we're told, "Oh, look at how terrible they're being." Well, if officers show up at my home or show up on the street and tell me, and look, I worry that someone's going to tell me, put on a mask on the street, and I'm going to say, "Nah, I'm not going to do it." And well, the officer's going to. Now, in the NYPD, to their credit, has said they will not enforce mask regulations. And this is unconstitutional. I just want to know, can the governor tell me that I have to walk around in a chicken suit? Can the government tell me that, can the governor of New York tell me that I'm only allowed to wear, purple on Tuesdays and neon green on Thursdays? What are the, hey, gotta keep you safe. Want to make sure everyone sees. Don't want you to get hit by a car, so let's have you wear really bright colors whenever you go outside all the time. Are there any limits to the stupidity of these government regulations? I wonder. But let's get back to what happened here. And this was up in Minneapolis. So Some of you listening to this in the Minneapolis area will, I'm sure, know the place names and details of this quite well. But you have 4 cops up in Minneapolis who were fired for the death of George Floyd, 46 years old. And this is an incident where there is a video that shows, and it's 5 minutes long. We're not going to play the full, obviously we wouldn't play a full 5-minute video. That's too long for air. But we will play some key segments of it for you here. Now, Floyd was arrested on suspicion of forgery, and I think that this also matters. You know, if someone is being arrested because they want them for 3 murders in gang-related activity, you can understand the cops are going to be a little more jumpy, a little more on edge. Forgery, this guy's not Al Capone. All right, so that they should be approaching this with a different mindset. Now, I know it's easy. And a lot of cops listen to stuff. They say, hey, come on, don't Monday morning quarterback. How many, and the cops used to say this to me sometimes in the NYPD when we talk about these issues, how many, violent crackheads have you ever wrestled to the ground outside of a project somewhere? And the answer is I have not ever done that. So I do give some deference to law enforcement in that respect. When I say deference, I mean I give them some leeway for, look, it's not going to be perfect. Wrestling someone to the ground is going to be an ugly thing. It's going to be an ugly thing. And sometimes it's necessary. But there are also limits. One of the pieces that I'm most proud of having written at The Hill was of a takedown and a shooting of an individual in Arizona. Officer Brailsford, I still remember his name off the top of my head. Officer Brailsford was the officer who was making these absurd demands, crawl toward me with your legs crossed or I will shoot you. And he's screaming all this stuff. The guy had done nothing wrong, nothing illegal, didn't have a gun, nothing. But terrified the kid into a whimpering mess. And then with 2 long guns drawn on this kid, they just blew him away, this young man, in a hallway of a building. He's a white guy, blew him away in the hallway of a building in Arizona. I bring up that he's a white guy because guess what? You probably didn't hear very much about that case because it didn't fit in the CNN narrative. That was murder. That was police. And the district attorney brought murder charges to his credit, but that was a murder. So sometimes the cops will say there are perps in uniform too. So, okay, let's get into the specifics here of this George Floyd case. So he's on the ground. The video is very clear. You have an officer with a knee on the back of his neck. And and this is all on video. Here is what George Floyd is saying at that point. Play clip 2.
Please, I can't breathe. Please, man. Please, man.
Well, you got him down, man. Let him breathe, at least, man.
I can't breathe.
I've been trying to help out. So let him breathe a little bit more. Put a hand in his neck, man. One of my homies died. Just ran with the backbone.
I'm about to die to see.
Relax.
This is horrific. And I know it's tough to listen to, but people need to hear it. You need to know, if you're going to have an opinion on this case, you need to know what was being said and what was being done here. This is a man who is subdued, who is handcuffed, who is on the ground, who has a knee on the back of his neck, not on the back of his shoulder, not the small of his back, the back of his neck. It's all on video. It's quite clear. He's saying, I can't breathe. Now, this is going to have obvious connections to the Eric Garner case here in New York City, where an officer put Eric Garner said, I'm not getting arrested today, which is not allowed. You don't get to say I'm not getting arrested today. So then he gets brought down to the ground. But that initial exchange and the force used caused him to have, as I remember, I haven't gone back and read the specific autopsy of the case, but have effectively respiratory failure. The guy had a heart attack and was unable to breathe. Now, he wasn't slowly choked to death over the course of 5 minutes, again, going on memory. But in this instance, George Floyd is being slowly asphyxiated, and that seems apparent from the video. And even bystanders, to their credit, are saying, hey, cops, come on, the guy can't breathe. You have other human beings who are showing up here saying, that's a human being you have on the ground. You know, that's someone's son, that's someone's dad, and he's clearly in duress and cannot breathe. What are these cops at this point thinking? What is going through their heads? I have to wonder. There are some cops, unfortunately. I remember there are cops who get into this meaning get into law enforcement because they want to protect people. And unfortunately, there are cops who get into it because they like authority. They want to bully people. I've come across both. I've known both. They exist. Some cops are bullies. Some cops like that, they got a badge and a gun. You got to do what they say. I've come across it plenty. I've also come across cops who, are the reason that you and I can walk around the streets and that our loved ones are safe at night, on the streets. And so I get it from both. And that's 90% of them. I would just, that's my, that's a night. But there's about 10% who are jerks and who, look, it's true in any industry. In media, 90% of us are jerks and 10% of us are decent human beings. But back to this case and what we're seeing here, you have this man being slowly asphyxiated, and then you have more people who show up and who are saying, well, hold on a second. I have a background in this. Bystanders start yelling, hey, I'm a first responder. You got to check his pulse. Hey, this guy's in real duress. What are you? And the cops are just staring at them, staring them down. I don't want to hear it from you, civilians. These civilians seemed completely reasonable, rational, and they were right. Play clip 3.
How long y'all gotta hold him down?
Why you don't do drugs, kids? It ain't about drugs, bro. You understand that?
Y'all don't gotta put y'all right.
He is human, bro.
His nose is
But I'm saying you can put him in the car. That's a
We tried that for 10 minutes.
That's a bum.
That woman's correct. Why? The guy's bleeding through his nose. He's clearly having trouble breathing. He's yelling. He's begging. You can't take the knee off his neck and just let him get some air. If you take the knee off the back of his neck, you try to let him get some air, and he, stands up and starts trying to bite people or try to headbutt them or gets violent and, starts kicking at them or doing whatever, okay, then you get to, but you got to give him the chance to breathe. You got to give him the chance to breathe. And he's got his hands behind his back, so, how he's, there are ways, but there's still ways that a person can be dangerous. My uncle's a cop. I know, people will spit, they'll kick, they'll bite, they'll do headbutt, all kinds of things, right? And they'll be a danger to you. And I get that. But this guy's on the ground, and he is prone, he is handcuffed. You got your knee on his neck. What are you doing? Come on, cops. What are the cops here doing? And people are saying he can't breathe, and they're just not, all that it takes here is for that one officer with the knee on the back of his neck to just release that pressure, let this man get some air, let those lungs fill up with air, and you got a human being who's going to see another day. Cops aren't doing it, though. Play clip 4.
Look at him.
Get off the street.
He's not responsive right now.
You would know.
He's not responsive right now. He's not responsive right now, bro.
Does he have a pulse?
No, bro, look at him. He's not responsive right now, bro.
Check for a pulse.
Bro, are you serious? You gonna just let him sit there with that on
Let
his
me
neck,
see a
bro?
pulse.
Is he breathing right now? Check his
How long do we
pulse.
have this conversation?
Check his pulse.
Okay.
Check his pulse, Tal.
I'm
Tal,
telling you
check
right
his
now,
pulse.
check his pulse.
Tal, check his pulse,
Look
bro.
at this dude, bro.
Bro, check his pulse, bro. You
Alright.
bogus,
He's just
bro.
laying
Don't do
You
drugs,
bogus.
guys.
Don't do drugs, bro. What is that? What do you think that is? You call what he doing okay?
Get back
You
on the
call what
street.
he doing okay? You call what you doing? You call what he doing
Are
okay,
you
bro?
really a firefighter?
Yes,
Bro.
I am from Minneapolis.
Bro,
Yeah. He died. The cops have all been fired from their jobs. Look, everyone is entitled to due process and the presumption of innocence. these cops should face charges, and there should be a full investigation. And it certainly looks like they may be, based on what we see here, they may be guilty of involuntary manslaughter. That's what it looks like to me. And we have to call out police abuse where it exists. Maybe there's something I don't know. Maybe he had a pre-existing condition that was exacerbated and it wasn't the additional use of force. That is possible. That seems unlikely to me. I'm not there. I don't have the police reports yet. But we as a society have to have these conversations. This looks like manslaughter. They killed a guy because they didn't want anyone around them challenging their authority, and they suppressed that piece of all of us as human beings that we would want to do what is necessary to protect a human being like this who is in duress and desperate for air. It's a tough thing to watch, but we have to call. Look, I love our cops as much as anybody. We have to hold the bad ones accountable. This looks bad.
This man's life matters. He matters. He was someone's son, someone's family member. He was someone's friend. He was a human being, and his life mattered. Whatever the investigation reveals, it does not change the simple truth that he should be with us this morning. I believe what I saw, and what I saw was wrong at every level. Being black in America should not be a death sentence. For 5 minutes, we watched as a white officer pressed his knee into the neck of a black man. For 5 minutes. When you hear someone calling for help, you are supposed to help. This officer failed in the most basic human sense.
The mayor is correct on that point. There was clearly a failure here. And he was also correct with everything he said at the start about how this is a man whose life matters. He has loved ones, and he should be with us today. That is all true as well. We will see where this case goes. We'll continue to follow it going forward. I do think that you can expect this will grow. This may be one of those cases that becomes more of a national symbol. And unlike the Mike Brown case, for example, which became an enormous national symbol for the Black Lives Matter movement, that case or that situation was presented untruthfully. That situation was lied about. This situation looks egregious, which means that it could be an even more it could be even more of a symbol and become a part of a bigger movement. We'll see. We'll see where it is. But I did, we're going to talk about cops being heroes on the show. And when cops end up as the bad guys, whether it's Comey or it's these guys in this case, we'll talk about that too.
When voters go to the polls in November and they want to judge the president on his response to this pandemic, what is the number of dead Americans that they should tolerate and where they can argue that, yes, he successfully defeated the pandemic?
I think, you're asking the wrong question. The right question is where did the data...
I want to ask, Kayleigh, so please don't tell me you're asking a right
and I answered your question once, but if you ask it twice, it doesn't make it any better of a question. So I'll respond in kind. I've given you one answer. I'll continue to extrapolate upon that he always listened to the science. The president, when Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx said, you need to shut down the economy, that was hard for the president. In a typical year, 120,000 people die of suicide and drug overdose. It's in a typical year. And doctors have said when you shut down an economy for an extended period of time, that number gets greater. People don't show up for their cancer diagnoses. There are a litany of results when you close down an economy, but closing down the economy for this amount of time kept us far below the 2.2 million number. And as we start to reopen, we keep in mind the people who are missing their screening appointments, the people who are succumbing to suicide and drug overdose because of economic hardship. This president made the right choice. It was a delicate balance, and he did it exactly as he should, guided by data. And we are far below 2.2 million dead Americans because of the actions of President Trump.
Yes, Kayleigh McEnany, my old friend, just crushing libs, crushing the fraudulent lib journos all over the place. I think yesterday I might have promoted on the show, and this happens to me sometimes because I get so into a topic and I'm so excited to talk to you all every day. It's the highlight of my day. It truly is every day. I mean, even producer Mark knows. I'm grumpy, late, need my coffee, Black Rifle, obviously. And, and then all of a sudden I get to talk to you guys, and it's like, okay, well, this is good now. But everything before and after can kind of be crappy, especially in quarantine. But talking to all of you is the highlight of my day. And that means that sometimes I get a little overexcited and forget when I'm like, blah, blah, at the top of the show. And I'm telling you what we're going to talk about. There was this article. Mark, did I discuss yesterday the guy who used to be the president of CBS News?
No, I don't believe you did.
Yeah, I don't think I did. Yeah, see, and Mark has to make sure that all the things that I am juggling, that they actually stay in the air and don't crash into a million pieces on the ground, which you can imagine what that's like. So he is the Archimedes to my Merlin the Wizard, for those of you that like the sort of... Actually, you do have some Archimedes-like tendencies.
I don't know if that's a compliment.
Who, what? Boy, I see no boy. You've never seen The Old Sword and the Stone in Disney?
No.
Do you have Disney Plus?
I do.
I think you would like it.
All right, maybe I'll have to watch it.
It's a cartoon, but it's well done.
I was going to say I'm the teller to your pen.
See, I don't know enough. I've interviewed Penn, and he's actually a pretty gregarious guy. But I have never seen their show. Is it good?
I used to watch the Showtime show that I cannot say the name of on the radio. I enjoyed it.
Okay.
Yeah. I've never seen their act, but I like the show.
Okay. Well, I would just tell everybody then that there was this article that was written in I think it was Wall Street Journal, because this goes to what's going on here with Kayleigh. I didn't talk about this, but over the weekend, some people, some big names, including someone affiliated with Fox News, who I won't name here, were taking some shots at Kayleigh McEnany. One of them is someone who I again won't name on the show, and I've interviewed him before. Never found him. Never really enjoyed talking to the guy or anything else. Basically, he wrote one good book 15 years ago, and everything other than that has been pretty meh. But he was nasty about Kayleigh, and another Fox News person was nasty about Kayleigh. And I just want to know, do they really think that a better way for the Trump administration to try to get its message out would be to sit there and just get food thrown at them? Just let them throw the tomatoes. Just throw those tomatoes and whatever else they feel like at whoever the White House press secretary is. No, the libs don't know what to do here because Kayleigh is very intelligent, highly presentable. I say that, with the respect that I'm, very respectfully, highly presentable and very adept at this. Because like me, Kayleigh was at CNN as a conservative who was meant to be a punching bag, and they decided that we were both less useful to them over time because wouldn't play that game. So I left and she left. We both chose to get the heck out of that place. The same year, we're both like, we're out. It's been fun. So she knows all the games the libs play, and this question here about how many dead Americans. This is a trap question. How many dead Americans are accepted? No matter what she says, it's White House claims, 150,000 is job well done. White House claims 200,000 is job well done. This is a trap. It's a trap. We all know this. But people on the right come after her and attack her on this, and they act like she's the problem. No, they're playing games. This isn't an important question. This is a gotcha question, so you can have people at MSNBC pat you on the head. Oh, good little journalist. That's right. Attack Trump. Good little journalist. And Kayleigh's like, no, I'm not going to deal with that. She's doing a phenomenal job. Look, and Sean Spicer was not good in the role. That's obvious. He just wasn't up for it. Okay, and Sean's a nice enough guy. I've met him once or twice, but he was not a good choice. The administration, Trump admits publicly, that it was not a good choice. That he's made a bunch of mistakes. Scaramouche, ate a mooch. Not a good choice. And there are others as well that clearly, I thought that Sarah Huckabee Sanders was solid and competent in the role. I think that Kayleigh is a problem for the Lib Journos. She's a problem. They don't really know how to handle her. But to have people on our side go after this young, conservative, Republican, female, mom, wife, and from our own side, it's just, but these people are desperate. The ones that criticize her, they're desperate for a return to what they think was the old order, where they were in more prominent roles, where they were the people on the right who were not as bad as those other people on the right. They'll play the game the way that we want. Of course, your overlords would always rather have you do as they say, so they'll give you a little pat on the head. They'll give you some scraps from the table, from the mainstream media, from the left-wing dominated journalism establishment. Take the Romney approach. Take the John McCain approach. Sell out your own side. Don't ever be a real political fighter for the right. And, sometimes they'll say, well, you're not that bad. You won't be sitting at the big boy table at our fancy cocktail party, but we'll set up one of those little foldable tables by the kitchen for you, and maybe you can have, the leftovers with the staff. That's what some of these people, that's what really is psychologically going on with them. I think it's very apparent. They liked the old way because they were elevated, even though they were doing so as a result of bending the knee. And then we get to the article that I had mentioned that yesterday I brought up, hadn't got it before, in the Wall Street Journal. It tells you something that I got to say, look, this guy was the president of CBS News for like a year or two, and then also I think was the president of Fox News for a short period of time as well. But because of that, his byline is going to get more credibility on this issue than other people's would. But I've been saying, as you know, that we are already in an environment of media. If you're smart, if you pay attention, you know that all media has a point of view. I always share mine with you. I always tell you what I think about things. And then I try to be as rigorous as I can with the facts, because if I'm not giving you real facts, then what's the point, right? But I give you facts, but I also tell you my opinions on things. Other news establishments, the New York Times is a lib rag. It is. The Washington Post is a left-wing rag. I say this to you, and you know this. And if you listen to this show or you watch the show, you're already aware of this. You know this. But remember, their audiences don't accept that. Their audiences think that they're getting the truth. Same thing at CNN. People who are, a lot of the CNN audience is, college educated and successful professionals, and they think that they're really sophisticated. Their understanding of the news and their ability to see things with clarity in the journalism establishment is childlike. They are not sophisticated at all in their understanding of what they're being presented. And that's part of the business model. That's what this editorial is saying. Don't expect, people, I won't say who, because it was a behind closed doors conversation with a media executive at a conservative outlet. That's all I will say. Not Fox, at a conservative outlet. And the media executive told me that he thought the way forward in conservative media was to reach out more to the left and have more centrist conversations and do more old school news approach in that regard. And I looked at it, I was just like, you are out of your mind. I mean, that is the worst idea I've ever heard. And I don't even mean I don't like the idea. I mean, if you're trying to build a business, that's the exact wrong thing to do. Because what we have now is a fractured media environment where people are increasingly just playing to a specific audience within it, and the polarization is good for business. CNN knows. Jeff Zucker, that vicious little fraud, knows that they're an anti-Trump operation and that they've got all these people going on TV all repeating it. It's just boring, too. They're not even interesting. They're not even clever or funny or worth listening to. It's like a bunch of, glorified catalog models reading off of a prompter. And we're all supposed to say, oh, well, look at CNN. Oh, the brilliant journalists. The people they have as analysts, too, are morons. Not all of them, most of them. Like 3/4 of the CNN analysts, politics, national security, total morons. Some of them are actually nice and pretty smart, but you don't see the nice, smart ones very often. I can tell you who they are. It should be fun. I'd sit here and just do a list. And I don't say this to be mean, but some truths need to be said. And these are truths that need to be said. People that are on CNN and MSNBC and are dumb and are pretending to be objective correspondents or whatever, they're polluting the public discussion with lies and with hypocrisy. And so they need to be called out. But this editorial was just saying the polarization is only going to get worse. So maybe we should just all adopt honesty as the policy. Maybe CNN and other places should say, yes, we share the Democratic Party's values. We are aligned on most policy issues with the DNC, but we promise to provide you with facts. And let me just say, if they would do that, I'd go on and I'd represent a conservative point of view. I mean, I go on the Bill Maher show. Bill Maher doesn't pretend to be objective. I mean, the show is rigged against the one conservative. You don't really get to talk very much, but at least there's an honesty there. Everyone knows what's going on. And from honesty, you can get greater truths. But if you start with dishonesty, then you're just putting more dishonesty on top of it. And that's what CNN and these other places do. So that's what the editorial was. The polarization is just going to get greater. And eventually we'll get to a point where I think it will be unsustainable to pretend that ABC News and CNN and NPR and the New York Times, the Washington Post are not explicitly and clearly and in everything from opinion to hard news to the culinary section doing the bidding of the left until we will reach a point where that will become the standard consensus belief. It's coming. It'll take a while, but we're heading there. And there's no way we're going to go back to objective journalism because you know what? It's always been a fraud.
I can absolutely do it if I want to, and I don't think I'm going to have to because it's starting to open up. We need our churches and our synagogues and our mosques. We want them open. Churches, synagogues, mosques, and other. We want them open, and we want them open as soon as possible. Now, I can tell you, I know a lot of pastors, a lot of rabbis, imams, and they want to take care of their people. They want to take care. They don't want anyone getting hurt or sick. And they're going to take care of their people. We need these people. We need people that are going to be leading us in faith, and we're opening them up. And if I have to, I will override any governor that wants to play games. If they want to play games, that's okay, but we will win.
This president has done so much, and I know that the left loves to ridicule him because he has not lived a chaste and an entirely virtuous life, which, I mean, look, I haven't lived an entirely chaste and virtuous life. Maybe that'll have to go on the late night salty producer Buck and Mark drinking booze podcast. But I'm just saying, no one is perfect is a little bit maybe too simplistic. But Trump, yeah, I know he's been married 3 times. The guy's not perfect. He doesn't pretend to be. But that's, you see, I can handle that in a public official. I can handle honesty. I don't like hypocrisy, and the left loves to just trash people of faith for their support of Trump. They like to act like, oh, why would any of them support Trump when he's this billionaire playboy and the whole other thing? Well, no, they're not saying that they are raising their children to be like Trump in regards to his marriages. And look, people have challenges and problems and they make mistakes. And I think people learn from things and, there's opportunity. Say what you will about Trump. And the guy does, love his kids. He tries to be a good father. He's not perfect. And no one's, I see, there we go again. He's not, that slips in. He keeps saying no one's perfect, of course. But those people of faith, those evangelicals and real Catholics, not lib social justice, let's be pro-choice, but then also talk all the time about how we need to be open borders. Wait, what? What is this? Real Catholics, and even, which I could speak to, and because I know who the real ones are and who the fakes are, and evangelicals, I am not one, so I cannot speak to the realness or fakeness, but I can just say the evangelicals who and Protestant sects who viewed Trump as a weapon for the faith that they have, someone who is willing to defend their freedom to practice their religion, they were right. Here Trump is stepping up and saying, hey, governors, back off this stuff against the churches and the mosques and the synagogues, too. Back off this stuff, or else the DOJ is going to remind you of something called the Constitution. 3 days after Trump said open up churches, you know what happened in California? They opened up. You know what's happened here in parts of New York, too? New York City? Churches, synagogues, mosques, opening up. Trump gets results for people of faith. Doesn't just talk a game.